going to start on the general state of CXM. Clearly, recent growth drivers have been in their favor, whether it's remote work, ongoing digital transformation, and the shift from brick and mortar to online. It seems like every enterprise, no matter what you're doing right now, has an omni-channel strategy and has to support that. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that trend. First of all, we're going to go through each one of you, ask about how CXM is being used in your enterprise, how important that is, and more importantly, what you see that trend going forward, if it's going to strengthen or flatten out. And I'm just going to go in order here. Tim, why don't you start with us, sir?
Sure. Well, representing the higher education space, I would say we're a few years behind what you would see in some of the other enterprise classes, where CXM is more up and coming. And so to answer your question, are we flattening out or we have a long road ahead? Specifically in higher ed, we have a long road ahead, and we've got a huge amount of growth that we can do in this space. Typically, we have been using one-off point solutions, for monitoring social media, things like Sprout Social, instead of the true AI-based platforms that we see coming out today, and that have been up and coming in the last couple of years. So we have looking at across our entire customer experience platform or experience in higher education. It's varied, and our product that we produce, students education, is very different than selling something, whatever widget or experience that you're going to have in a different industry. So CXM is definitely on the horizon, up and coming in higher ed.
Thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate that. Anthony, going to move on to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. In the EdPub space, it's actually currently used very heavily, but that use is continuing to grow. We use it for both internal and external purposes, whether it's our clients, whether it's schools and universities, folks that be taking tests, signing up for classes, or performing some sort of activity associated with the educational component, but also internally, particularly where we had to send 10,000 people home last year, and then trying to really stay in touch and keep our pulse on the climate of the users and the colleagues that were working remotely, what they need and how they function, things that we could do to improve their environment, things that we could do for them to make the work environment better. So we're continuing to expand those functions as well as other activities that we want to do to get more detailed data and information surrounding, how folks are functioning and ways to improve. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we face, particularly with COVID, where it's different when you get a lot of folks together in a room and have a conversation versus having to try to get them to really tell you what they need and what their work environment and their home environments are like via some chat session or Zoom or Teams or what have you. So having us have the tools available to really kind of gather that data, get their experiences, really track it and trend it and understand how we could improve has been really, really helpful and beneficial, and will continue to be that way going forward.
Okay, thank you very much, and we'll get into some of the tools that you're leveraging in a little bit. But first, I'm going to jump to the next two gentlemen, and I think that they might have a little bit more of an answer about the actual client side, if I could be right on that one. But Marty, we're going to ask you the same question. First of all, I would imagine you're heavily leveraging CXM, and I would also imagine that growth is probably not stalling for you, but tell me if I'm right or wrong.
No, absolutely. I think, measuring customer experience is just, it's like air and water for running an e-commerce platform like ours. So we not only measure customer experience to a great deal on our platform, but we also run a ton of A/B experiments on our platform. So whenever we develop a new feature, we A/B test it and then monitor the customer experience against it. So it goes hand in hand. I think there's also a huge opportunity for the data gathering and data collection space for all these customer events that are happening on your platform. I mean, this is going to be a trend, I think, for the next 5 years. And for us, it's critical to be able to measure these things, because ultimately a new feature that drives a better customer experience actually increases your revenue.
Excellent. Thank you, Marty. And Praveen, same question to you, sir. Well, before we jump into the details, would love to hear a little bit more of an overview and a background on how you're using it and where you see the trend going.
Absolutely. I think it's very much in line with what Marty was saying. As a large global telecommunication leader, Customer experience is very critical these days, as we all know. In the past, we were good with the CRM, where, it was all about, optimizing the fulfillment process, making sure that bills were good, and we were not overbilling, underbilling. I mean, the challenges and were different in the past versus now. Every customer, whether they're paying top dollar or not, is expecting hyper personalization. So, and omni-channel, right? You can't expect them to be on a desktop, laptop anymore. You should be able to give them services where they are, right? So if we don't ask them to come to our brick and mortar, our websites, or use portals that we define, rather we need to go to where they are, where they exist. So from that perspective, whether they're on Instagram or Pinterest or any of the social media sites, or we should be able to get to them. WhatsApp, we should find multiple ways to expand the omni-channel experience, and that's one thing I want to mention. Second thing is to have, and I'm pretty sure we'll go deeper into this, but especially product side, when we try to build new products, or even kind of rethink and reimagine existing products, we kind of take the customer journey mapping, the design thinking process, because it brings a lot more data-driven, scientific way of handling a customer experience and defining those KPIs up front. And once you define those personas across regions and demographics, and you tie that with data, like Marty said, and analytics, that's going to translate into revenue. So CX plus analytics equals revenue, at the end of the day. That's why it's the higher focus lately, and I don't think that's going to go away for the next 100 years.
Yeah, if that's accurate, that the CX equals revenue, that'll be talking about later, and the price sensitivity obviously will be a little less price sensitive if that's true. I think we're going to talk a little bit now into the individual vendors, and we'll get in there. But obviously, again, gentlemen, let me know if there's something else you want to add. The reason I'm going to jump to this right now is because all of you said that the importance isn't really waning. It's not really flattening, and that you see that continuing. But in our very preliminary data, as you were seeing, we're almost up to 1,000 responses so far in our most recent survey. But the recent data that we're seeing is that spend is flattening. And this right here is with Qualtrics. I could show it with some of the others. But we are seeing spend actually, or spending intentions, I should say, kind of slowing down a little bit. So as we talk a little bit about what our options are out there, we see the pure plays like Qualtrics, Medallia, Sprinkler. All three have IPO'd in the last 12 months, one just a few days ago. And then we also have the CRM trying to expand into it. So let's just take a look now at what's out there as far as the vendor landscape and what your options are, and why you would utilize one over another, how they stand out from each other. I'm going to go back the other way around. Praveen, if you don't mind kicking us off. I think you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I think I was on mute. Sorry about that. So it's interesting trend that you have seen. It's certainly not what we have seen at our organization,
right,
or in our industry vertical. I think it's to some extent cyclic as well. Not all industries are innovating at the same speed. And give it another year, you'll see, especially with 5G and all the emerging tech kicking in full gear, and IoT, etc. I think you'll see a lot more need for bringing CXM into the spotlight, if you will, and increasing the spend on it. So one last thing I definitely want to mention is, like I was alluding to earlier, in the past, we divided customers, or we classified customers into, platinum, gold, silver type support models, or what they buy. And so anybody who bought a platinum type service, which is either a managed service or above a certain dollar figure annually, was getting very highly personalized services in the past. Versus now, everybody is expecting it. It's table stakes because everybody else is doing it. So in that sense, it may be a pandemic-driven, temporary pause in spending on CXM that you may have observed, but I don't think it's the longer-term trend.